you want to move away from modern medicine, if you want to discover healthier alternatives for your family, if you want a healthy body, then you're in the right place. Hey beauty, I'm Alexandra. I'm an author and clinical research nurse who discovered that Jesus is the source of true healing. I am the Lord your healer. Exodus 15:26. Hey beauty, if you're overwhelmed or unsure where to start with your health, I created something just for you. It's a free guide called Feel Better Naturally with simple faith-based steps to start healing your body today. Go grab it at herholistichealing.com/free. If you will go to episode 126, you will hear me interview Dr. Ben, who talks about how the body can heal itself. He also talks about how in the alternative health world, we have basically traded in synthetic pills and surgeries, sometimes with a ton of supplements. I will say that I pretty much agree with him. I mean, I really respect functional medicine practitioners, and I do think they can be great. But I do think in the alternative health world, we do take a lot of supplements, some of us. I will say that I am a fan of supplements. Right now, I don't take that many. I take maybe a multivitamin and fish oil, and then I take other things based upon if I have symptoms of something. In both worlds, the conventional medical industry and alternative health industry, you will find that sometimes you have to go back and see the doctor every 3 months or every so often, and they prescribe blood tests. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I'm not totally against blood tests, but when you think about it, in the Bible, blood is very important and sacred in a way. When it comes to the medical field, we're constantly just taking our blood out of our bodies like it's nothing. I remember each morning, that's what I would do. I would go around seeing who needs a blood draw because every morning sometimes people would get a blood draw. And I also remember taking my daughter, I think she was, I don't know, maybe 6 at the time. She had to have a blood test or I should say, a blood test was prescribed by the doctor. And when we went to get her blood test, they wanted to check with the doctor and they had to check her weight because the doctor wanted to take so much blood out of her. Blood is just really important to the body, and it seems like it's just really important in general because the Bible talks about blood a lot, right? That's kind of I kind of just went on a tangent, but it's something that I've been thinking about. So, going back to supplements, you can go to episode 107 where I talk about 5 things I wish I knew before I started them. When I started going down the holistic health path, I did start taking a ton of supplements, and some of them are really helpful. Some of them I'm not sure if they were helpful because I was taking so many of them. But the fact is that even if they are helpful, taking so many supplements, it's not really sustainable for the budget. Plus, like I said, for some of these supplements, you can't really tell whether or not they're working unless maybe you go to a functional medicine practitioner who tells you to take a blood test every 3 months or something to see whether it's working or not. I feel like that's not very sustainable. I was listening to a podcast. It wasn't a health podcast. It was actually the podcast was a business coach. She was interviewing this other business coach who started her own telehealth business. And the lady who started the telehealth business was talking about how the patients had to speak with their doctor if they wanted this special treatment, then they would have to go undergo testing every so often. It just seems like a lot, right? And I'm not totally against all of that. Once again, like I said, I am actually a fan of supplements. I actually like functional medicine practitioners, but it can get frustrating if you're seeing a functional medicine practitioner and your symptoms are not getting better, even though you've invested all this money in supplements. So I want to mention once again, the wisest thing you can do is to ask God for wisdom first. This is basically what my book is about. Discover God's Health Wisdom, exposing 8 common myths that keep you sick. So that's the first thing I would recommend before starting supplements or before continuing to take a ton of supplements. Ask God for wisdom first. Now, you may be thinking, well, God doesn't really speak to me, or how do I know what He wants me to do? So, we're going to talk about this on a very practical level. I will be honest with you, when it comes to asking God for wisdom, I'm not very good about remembering to do that, which is probably why He gave me this message in the first place, because I'm one of the ones that needed it. But first, I want to remind you, as I feel like I've been saying this verse over and over in every episode, it says in James that if we ask God for wisdom, He will give it generously to us. It also says that we need to believe that He will give it to us. Here's the actual passage. This is James 1 starting in verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So, when you ask God, know that He wants to give you wisdom. He gives generously to all, as it says in James. But when you ask, ask in faith with no doubting. In my experience, most of the time, God does not respond in a booming voice. But I will give you one example of one time that He has blown my mind. He has since blown my mind a lot more, but this is one of the first times. If you want to listen to it, you can go back to episode 43. Basically, we were thinking about moving. I asked him for wisdom. I asked him if we should move from Chicago to Florida, and I was reading a Bible passage. It wasn't actually the Bible, it was a Christian, it was actually a prayer book for a prayer book to pray for your husband, prayers for your husband. And a verse just jumped out at me on the page. And basically, everything around me started spinning. That verse just popped out at me. Everything else was blurry except that verse. That's the long story made short. And I assure you, I wasn't drinking or on drugs or anything like that. So sometimes God does speak like this. And I love it when He does speak like this. But in my experience, He doesn't usually speak like this. I mean, but when we look at the Bible, God speaks through donkeys, He speaks through fish, like how Jonah was swallowed by a fish. He speaks in all different ways. He can speak through your own thoughts, He can speak through other people, He can speak through Bible verses. He spoke to me through a verse in Jeremiah telling me that a lot of my health symptoms happen because I'm not trusting in Him. There was a lady at church who was talking about apple cider vinegar, and it gave me the idea to start taking apple cider vinegar before, because I had in the past, and it was apple cider vinegar has just been so great for my health. I know that God is speaking to me when I have this idea to do something nice for someone, and it's something that I don't really want to do. For instance, I talked about this in the podcast before. There was a neighbor of ours, the wife was pretty sick, and I felt like just God wanted me to make a meal for her. And I don't really like cooking, and it's not really in my wheelhouse, and I really didn't want to do it, but the thought kept coming up, and it was like, I don't know, months later, and the thought wouldn't go away. I finally made the meal. And then when our neighbors moved to Spain, they gave us all their stuff, all this stuff, this gardening stuff, this furniture, all these things that they couldn't bring to Spain. They just gave all these things to us for free because they liked us, because we were kind to them. I made them food. So I believe it was God who told me to make a meal for them so that He could teach me just to be more generous and to be more obedient. And He used that one instance to bless us in a really big way. So God speaks to us in all different ways, and I really encourage you, if you're not in a habit of reading your Bible, he definitely speaks through the Bible. But also when you're praying, make time to listen. I am really bad about this. What I do is to just make sure I'm making time to listen. I take 5 minutes and just sit there. I ask God to give me eyes to see and ears to hear whatever He wants to tell me. And sometimes I do hear things that He tells me, and sometimes I don't. But if God is our Father, the Bible calls God our Father. He calls Jesus a friend. He also refers to God as our husband, right? So for people in our lives, with our husbands or our friends or our fathers, we usually, hopefully, make time for them. How can we know our friends or our husband or our dads well if we don't spend time with them, if we don't take time to listen to what they want to tell us? It's the same thing with God. We if we don't make time to listen to him, we won't be able to hear him, basically. So that's my first recommendation before you start taking supplements, or before you continue to take a ton of supplements. Stop and ask God what he thinks. Ask God to give you wisdom. The second recommendation I have is to slow down and listen to God, and also listen to your body. What do I mean by this? When I'm really stressed out, my brain gets really foggy, I get really fatigued, and I get depressed, okay? When I'm stressed out and depressed and I have brain fog and all that, it usually leads to other physical symptoms. When I eat a lot of sugar, my body does not like it. I sometimes my skin breaks out, mm, I get headaches, I feel jittery. When I have just maybe one iced coffee, I feel a little crazy because my body is not used to it and my body doesn't really like it. I am already kind of not jittery, but my body doesn't really like caffeine from coffee. When I used to take cold medicine, I felt a little crazy. When I was prescribed birth control as a kid because my period was a little crazy, I felt crazy. I felt nauseous. My head just felt weird on birth control as a kid and as an adult. If you're interested in learning about the dangers of the pill, go to episode 67 where I interview Becca Yon. On the flip side, I felt really great after I did a cleanse with herbs and essential oils. Fish oil has been wonderful for my health. I feel energized when I have certain smoothies with pineapple or coconut, or other great smoothies with raw milk or almond milk. I feel energized when I eat meat. Sleeping is wonderful for all of us. My body craves sleep. Taking bubble baths in or going in a whirlpool with certain essential oils is a great stress reliever for me. Walking on the beach doing grounding is wonderful for my stress and just wonderful for inflammation. When I was pregnant, it felt wonderful to walk when I was in my first trimester and I had really bad morning sickness. Walking was one of the only things that helps with the morning sickness. When I go to Muay Thai class, I never want to go. I make excuses up in my head for reasons why I can't go and I don't want to go. But after I go to a Muay Thai kickboxing class, I kid you not, I feel like I'm on top of the world. It is just such a great stress reliever for me. And this is what I mean about listening to your body. What works for me may not work for you, but what I'm saying is that we need to get better at listening to our bodies. We need to get better at knowing what foods our specific bodies don't like. We need to get better at knowing what will help relieve our stress, etc., right? So that is my second recommendation for you. Slow down and listen to God and listen to your body. The first one was ask God for wisdom, and the second recommendation was slow down and listen to God and your body. This is what I would recommend before taking supplements or before continuing to take a ton of supplements. Or really, this is just great advice in general, right? So if you are interested in more sustainable, natural ways to take care of your body, I recommend that you go back to the fundamentals. For example, breathing, focusing on your breathing. Go to episode 128 where I talk about box breathing and other types of breathing. I recommend focusing on lowering your stress level, making sure that you're spending time with people that you love, that you're not just spending time being a mom or being a wife or just working all the time, but that you're making time to spend with your friends. Just simple things like opening a window to get some fresh air in your house, getting rid of some toxic chemicals that you've been cleaning with, moving. If you are not into kickboxing like I am, just go for a walk or go dancing, do a YouTube video and stretch. Whatever kind of movement you like, you can do that. Get out in the sun. Make sure that you are getting enough vitamin D from the sun, that you are getting out in the sun, that you are sleeping enough. You can think about it this way: get the good stuff in your body and in your mind, and get the bad stuff out of your mind and out of your body. So I'm not just talking about food here, I'm talking about get the negative thoughts out of your mind. Forgive people. See a counselor or a mentor or a friend to help you deal with trauma that you've experienced. Watch what you're watching, watch how much time you're spending on social media. You might even have to think about just huge life choices like your day job. Does God want you to quit your day job because it's too stressful? When it comes to your body, like I was saying, are you using really toxic chemicals to clean your house? Are the personal care products that you're using, are they safe, relatively safe for your body, or do they contain endocrine disruptors? You can go to episode 26 and 27 of the podcast to learn more about all of that. I really hope that this was helpful for you. I really hope before any health choice, or even if you've already made a certain health decision, keep asking God for wisdom. Ask God first, if possible, and then next, slow down and listen to what God is telling you. Listen to God and listen to your body. Today's episode encouraged you. I'd love for you to grab my free guide, Feel Better Naturally. It's packed with simple biblical steps to help you take care of your health without confusion or overwhelm. Go to herholistichealing.com/free to get your free copy. Thanks for listening today. If you like what you heard, would you take a minute to leave the show a review? If you want to connect with me, you can join me in my free community. The link is in the show notes, or go to herholistichealing.com. Matthew 11. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls.
For you, it's easy and my burden is light.
This content is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be medical advice.